Los Angeles spreads out like a giant maze, a city of more than 4 million people filled with endless highways. Shiny billboard in the buildings seem to touch the sky. Loud noises. Everywhere you turn, there is the sound of traffic. A street vendor shouted, and police sirens wailed in the distance. It's a city of dreams. But it's also full of nightmares. Last year, Yelena got off the plane and prepared to open law school in this concrete man. She had never lived in a big city before. And Los Angeles is full of people. The air was thick with smoke. The smell of oil lingered in her nose. Her ears buzzed with the constant noise of city life. Yelena grew up knowing she had half the time. Sister in this big city, her younger sister was a secret someone her parents never wanted to talk about. A person who was shrouded in silence, her parents' faces darkened every time her sister's name came up. It feels like Yelena has spent her whole life thinking about her. A terrifying figure resides somewhere in this vast metropolis. But now Yelena is in Los Angeles, and her sisters are closer than ever. Medium, it wasn't long before curiosity got the best of her. She searches for her sister on social media, but what she found was an inactive Facebook profile. With blurry photos, a few photos, and there's still a bit more to discover. That's all she knows. There is no real relationship. There was only a face on the screen. They had never met and never even talked. But that was about to change. One evening, Yelena was reading a book late at night. There was a soft pinging sound. It echoed throughout her small house. She looked at her phone and stopped. A Facebook notification, a friend request from an unexpected person, her half-sister. Her breath caught in her throat as she clicked through the information. Her sister's face stared at her from the screen. As far back as she could remember, the same smile she remembered from old Facebook photos. And then the message came, "Hey, I really want to meet you at last. Some friends and I will have dinner tomorrow night. At the park, you should come." The words felt strange. Eating dinner in the park? At night? Yelena's stomach twisted. The thought of finally seeing my sister after all these years was exciting, but it's also scary. What happens if they don't get along? What would happen if things didn't work out? An uncomfortable shift, or worse, an emotional one. She argued about this for hours. Her mind raced with all sorts of possibilities. She imagined them hugging, laughing, following each other as long-lost friends. But then she imagined a different scenario, one where they argued, or worse, a situation where her younger sister didn't care about her. The thought of meeting my sister in front of strangers felt wrong. It was too weak, too risky, and Yelena finally decided not to go. The thought of gardening made her feel uncomfortable, and nothing about the whole situation made sense to her. Several weeks passed, and Yelena couldn't stop thinking about that strange invitation. Something stuck in her mind. It was as if she hadn't scratched the itch late one night, after a long day studying law. She found herself in Google Park, where dinner was supposed to be. The more I read, the more my stomach ached. This isn't just any garden. It is a dangerous place known for violent crime and gang activity. The internet is full of news articles and crime reports about the area. No one saw people. Drug dealing is a regular occurrence, and anyone who wanted to do business there had to pay taxes to the local gangs. There is no room for food, especially young women. At night, Yelena's hands shook as she read. A creeping fear came over her. Why did her sister invite her there? What will happen if she goes? The more he thought about it, the more frightened he felt. Something is very wrong. With determination to find the truth, so Yelena decided to take action. She had a friend who went to the same college as her sister, so she asked for help. A friend tries to find her half-sister, and the three of them met at a friend's house. As her sister walked through the door, Yelena felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She looked just like the picture, tall, dark hair, and with an air of quiet confidence. But something is off. Her movements were stiff, her eyes swept around. The room was uncomfortable, and her voice was softer than Yelena had imagined. However, the night turned out to be better than Yelena expected. They talked about their childhoods, their families, and things they'd never met. It's not perfect, but it feels real. They shared laughs, ate pizza, and even shed a few tears. It was the meeting Yelena had expected, simple, human, and sincere. But when Yelena mentioned the invitation on Facebook, her sister's expression changed. She looked confused, her eyebrows furrowed, and she shook her head. "I haven't used Facebook since high school," she said slowly. The room seemed to cool as realization hit Yelena like a punch in the gut. Someone pretended to be her sister. Someone tried to lure her into that dangerous park. Her older sister explains that she has been an impersonator before. A few months ago, one of her friends was tricked into using someone's name to sell fake concert tickets. Not long after that, the fake account disappeared. Yelena's skin cracks as the pieces fall into place. It is discovered that she is in Los Angeles. Someone is impersonating her sister and trying to lure her into a dangerous area of the city. But why is that? What are they planning? And how did they know so much about her? After that night, nothing could shake the feeling that Yelena was watching her. She began to notice little things around her apartment. Her book isn't where she left it. The curtains opened slightly, although she remembered to keep them closed. Her phone suddenly buzzed with strange messages from an unknown number. Strange messages, at first random greetings or weird vague messages like "see you soon, I'm looking at you." At first, Yelena, think it's just spam. But they keep coming. Then the feeling of being watched prevailed. Whenever she walked home from school, she felt her gaze, as if someone were nearby, always lurking in the shadows. She tried to ignore it, but the fear increased. It was like an itch that she couldn't scratch. One night she came home to find her apartment door slightly open. Her heart was pounding as she walked in, and her hands were shaking. Everything looks in place, but something felt wrong. The air felt heavy, like someone was there, watching, waiting. One evening, mist came down from the Pacific Ocean, and Yelena was walking home from the library. The streets were eerily quiet. The fog obscured the streetlights and made everything eerily bright. When she reached the apartment building, she noticed something that made her stop dancing. There was a figure standing under a streetlight, barely visible through the mist. It was like a tall statue, but still had the shape of a woman. Yelena's breath caught in her throat. She doesn't remember faces, but the figure was familiar in a way that made her blood run cold. She rushed in. There was a strong pulse in her ears. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she took it out with trembling hands. A new message, her fingers twitching as she opened it. The words were simple, but they gave her chills. "Look outside." Yelena's heart beat slowly. Her chest was next to the window. She pulled back the curtains. Her hands were shaking. Outside, under the glittering streetlights, it was the same body. She had a younger sister. But there's something wrong. Her sister's skin was abnormally pale, and her eyes were wide and empty, as if she were staring right through Yelena. She stood perfectly still. Her expression stiffened unabashedly. Her expression froze. Yelena's phone rang again. "I told you we would see each other soon." She looked down at the message. Breath caught in throat. When you looked back, the streets were empty. The figure disappeared. The truth hit her like ice. The person she met was not her sister. Whoever sent those messages, whoever is watching her, it is something else entirely. The real danger is never in the garden, but it has always followed you. And now it's closer than ever. Myra, 23, was looking for an escape from her normal life. When she went on vacation to another state, it was supposed to be a summer of relaxation and exploration. But it turned out to be a haunting experience that would change her forever. What begins as an innocent relationship quickly turns into a nightmare that taps into the roots of her fears. It's July and the summer heat enveloped the small town. This place is like a thick blanket. Myra spent a month in a state far from her home. Hoping to find some peace, the streets are quiet, as if the only sound is the hum of the air conditioner or the occasional drone of a distant lawnmower. With old American charm, the city looks like it was taken straight from a postcard. The streets are lined with red brick houses. Each house has an American flag hanging proudly on the balcony. It's the perfect place for a quiet getaway. Myra spent the first few days seeing the local attractions, especially drawn to the important historical sites of her religion. She finds comfort in the quiet, reflective nature of the place. There she met Alex, a 22-year-old man who worked at the site. He is not flashy or loud, but there was something about him that fascinated her. His quiet demeanor and polite demeanor stand out in a world that can often feel too fast and too loud. At first they made small talk, her heart pounding with playful teasing. That seemed to dance between them, although she wasn't sure he even knew it. And after a few days she mustered up the courage to ask him out. To her surprise, he agreed in preparation for an unforgettable evening. Their first date was on the 13th. They met at a sushi restaurant in a dimly lit, soft, and lively atmosphere. The restaurant was hidden in a shopping mall. A neon open sign glowed faintly in the humid air. Inside, the sound of chopsticks and the faint sound of conversation echoed throughout the room. Myra smelled the scent of soy sauce and a slight sweetness, of teriyaki floating in the air. She smiled as Alex fumbled with his chopsticks. Try to act casual. As he tried to pick up the sushi roll after dinner, they walked to a nearby miniature golf course. The smell of freshly cut grass mixed with the rubbery smell of golf balls. The sun is setting, casting a warm golden light all over the road. Laughter from children playing nearby it reverberated through the air as Myra and Alex playfully argued with each other. Their steps scrambled across the dirt road. The evening breeze brushed across her skin. It is a relief from the sweltering heat of the day. Then they went to the arcade. The lights and beeps of old-school games create a lively atmosphere. Myra's heart races at every game, and her competitive spirit comes alive as they play air hockey and basketball. Get a ball with a hoop, a few hours everything felt light and fun. It's an evening that makes you forget your worries. Although some time had passed, on the 24th, Myra and Alex had another memorable visit. This time they went to a planetarium where stars were projected onto the ceiling of a giant dome. The planetarium has an old musty smell. Air conditioner, the familiar smell of a place designed for tourists. They found seats in the domed theater. The ceiling above them shimmered with artificial stars. As the lights dimmed, Myra heard the faint rustling of people moving into their seats for the performance. Above them were stars. It's a swirling galaxy that makes Myra feel small in the vastness of the universe. The planets revolved and the stars twinkled. She and Alex hugged each other in the dark. Their whispered conversation mixed with the soft hum of the planetarium projector. This is soothing to the cool artificial air and the serene beauty of the stars. After the show ends, they went to dinner at a classic American restaurant. This place has red vinyl booths. The jukebox is in the corner, and there's the faint smell of burger grease sizzling on the grill. They laughed over milkshakes. Their faces were lit up by the twinkling neon lights in the windows. But when the night passes, their conversation became more serious. Later that night, they decided to go for a drive. The streets were almost empty. The light from the streetlights cast long shadows on the sidewalk. They left Alex's car on a quiet, traffic-free road. No one noticed that they had parked their car. Myra suggests returning to her car, and they drove to the spot they had previously found. This is the starting point from which the city can be seen. The path is deserted. The air was still and heavy. The trees stood tall like shadows in the sky. The leaves flutter in the wind. Myra spread a picnic blanket on the roof of her car and climbed up, pulling Alex along. They lay together, staring at the city below. A distant flicker of light was the only sign of life. While they lay there, Myra opens up about something she hasn't shared with many people. She had been raped 7 months ago, and they slowly emerged, their weight hanging in the cool night air. She felt the rough surface of the car roof beneath her fingertips, and made her pause as she spoke. Alex's response was immediate. He pulled her into a tight hug, warm and protective arms. "It's okay," she whispers, but Alex shakes his head. "No," he says, his voice dripping with emotion. "What happened to you is not okay." Myra's eyes filled with tears as she told him of the steps she had taken to bring the attacker to justice. Even though the man was still on the loose end, Alex made her cry mixed with her own tears. For a moment, the world seemed to stop spinning. The only sound was the rustling of leaves on the trees. When the sun sets, completely leaving the surrounding world in shadow, they headed back to Alex's car. The street was eerily quiet. The streetlights blinked as if they were about to go off. Myra felt strangely uneasy as they were abandoned in the dark and deserted street. The silence was thick and oppressive. When sitting in the car, Myra's insecurities began to show. She had always felt that she didn't deserve someone as good as Alex. He was righteous, kind, perfect. However, she felt that her past had weighed her down and made her feel less valuable. "You are too good for me," she said, her voice shaking slightly. Alex answered as usual. Gently reassuring her that she was wrong, Myra pressed forward. Her voice was firmer now. "If you knew everything I did, you would be shocked." The car went silent. The air inside thickened. When it closed around you, Alex didn't say anything at first. He just stared straight ahead. His fingers tapped lightly on the steering wheel. The darkness outside seemed to press against the window. "Makes the car feel lighter," Alex then spoke in a quiet voice that was almost a whisper. "For many years," he said slowly, "I have thought about doing something for the innocent, just like that boy did to you." Myra's stomach dropped. The words hit her like a punch to the gut and suffocated her. The car that had been safe only moments before now felt like a trap. The street outside was extremely quiet. Streetlights cast long, eerie shadows on the road. The air inside the car seemed dense. The tension rose like a slowly suffocating mist. She turned to look at Alex, search his face for any signs, that he was joking, that this was a twisted and dark attempt at comedy. But his face was calm, too calm, as if he had accepted something completely normal. His eyes were almost soft and kind. Seeming far away now, Myra's mind raced. Her pulse quickened, and she could hear blood pounding in her ears. Every instinct screamed at her to run and get out of the car. But her body felt frozen in place. She tried to control her breathing, tried to think clearly. When outside the car, the world suddenly felt incredibly peaceful. There was only a soft humming sound of car engines and the rustling of leaves in the distance. Myra knew she had to escape. She said with a forced smile, "I'm tired. I think I should go home now." Her voice was shaky. Breaking the fear that was gnawing inside her, Alex didn't respond at first. He sat for a while, fingers still touching the steering wheel. He then slowly raised his head. "Okay," he said in a distant, almost robotic tone. Myra quickly got out of the car. Her hand shook as she fumbled with the keys. The cold night air hit her like a pillar. In contrast to the suffocating tension inside the car, she got into the car, her breath light. Panic gas.